Well, the reports out of Aleppo, Syria are incredible. The suffering, the humanitarian crisis. But if that's true, and I know this video is hard to see, but why are these people in Aleppo celebrating in the streets? Just listen to what they're doing. See, watch just about any media report, and you know that Syrian President Bashar al-Assad is waging war on his own people. At least that's what you're being told. But is that the truth? 3 facts that you're not hearing about Aleppo in this reality check that you won't see anywhere else. Well, if you listen to most media reports about Aleppo, you're going to hear that Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, with the help of the Russians, is laying siege to his own city of Aleppo and committing genocide against his own people. But there is a lot of evidence that you're not getting the full story. During the 5-year so-called Syrian civil war, we have been told, first of all, that moderate freedom fighters have been attempting to overthrow President Assad. But that claim has been repeatedly proven untrue. 3 facts you don't know about Syria. Fact number 1, Syria's so-called Free Syrian Army rebels have been disbanded. They no longer even exist. The U.S. actually trained moderate rebels in Syria, but according to the Pentagon, those moderates gave all their U.S.-provided weapons to Al-Qaeda in Syria, known as Al-Nusra Front. By late 2015, the largest group battling Assad became the Islamic State. To be clear, the Syrian government is battling ISIS and Al-Qaeda, not rebels. Those are provable facts and admitted by our own government, and yet for some reason most media refuses to even mention the names ISIS or Al-Qaeda when talking about Aleppo, and instead only refer to these fighters as rebels. So what's actually happening in Aleppo? Well, in 2012, Aleppo, which is Syria's largest city, was taken by Al-Nusra and FSA fighters. In September of this year, Assad and the Syrian Arab Army, the actual Syrian army, with the help of the Russians, began a military campaign to take back eastern Aleppo, which is controlled by terror groups. On Sunday, buses were sent into eastern Aleppo to evacuate civilians by the Syrian government. But Al-Nusra fighters set fire to those buses. Why? Because Al-Nusra and ISIS are reportedly trying to block the evacuation of civilians from eastern Aleppo as they use those civilians for cover. Fact number 2, there is not an attack on civilians being conducted by the Syrian government. Rescuers claim that hospitals in eastern Aleppo have been the primary target of the bombardment since this campaign for the eastern part of Aleppo began. It sounds horrific. But again, what virtually no national media is reporting, according to reports from those on the ground, like journalist Vanessa Beeley, there are only 3 hospitals in eastern Aleppo, and they are almost exclusively inhabited by Al-Qaeda and ISIS fighters. And fact number 3, what about those white helmet groups? Well, they're not what they claim to be. The White Helmets are an NGO that claims it has no connection to any group in the Syrian fight, and they are simply there to provide help to the injured and wounded civilians. They were nominated in 2016 for the Nobel Peace Prize, but here's what you may not know. The White Helmets are actually receiving $100 million in funding from the United States, the UK, Japan, Denmark, the Netherlands, and Germany. So what you need to know is, well, actually going back to the video that we started with, the video of celebrations on the streets of Aleppo as the Syrian Arab Army continues to push out those terror groups. This video from journalist Lizzie Phelan, again on the ground in Syria. So where is this kind of video in our national newscasts? Because on any given night, you're shown video of bombed out buildings, but you're not seeing the people who are thanking Syrian President Assad for pushing out Al-Qaeda and ISIS. The bottom line here, there is an entirely different story here that is being missed. There is no question that Al-Qaeda and ISIS are the driving force against Assad in Syria. So when media talks about those groups as a great threat to the world in every nation except for Syria, where they're only referred to as rebels, it becomes clear how dishonestly this story is being covered. That's Reality Check. Let's talk about that on Twitter.